The river that wasn't. Long ago, in the year 1565, a brave explorer named Estacio stood at the helm of a mighty wooden ship. The salt spray of the Atlantic Ocean danced in the air as his fleet sailed toward a mysterious land of emerald forests and golden sands. Beside him was Afonso, a young sailor with a heart full of wonder, watching the horizon for any sign of land. As the ships glided through the turquoise water, a massive opening appeared between two giant mountains of stone. "Look!" Afonso shouted, pointing toward the mouth of the bay. The water was so wide and deep that the sailors were sure they had found the end of the ocean and the start of a magnificent giant river. It was a beautiful day in the month of January. Because they mistakenly believed the huge bay was the mouth of a great river, they gave the place a special name. They called it Rio de Janeiro, which in their language meant River of January. Estacio sat at his desk, carefully dipping his quill in ink to record the name in the ship's logbook. Afonso was mesmerized by the shapes of the mountains. One of them looked just like a giant loaf of sugar standing tall against the clouds. He took out a piece of charcoal and began to sketch the strange, towering peak, wanting to remember every curve of this new world they were about to call home. But the bay was not empty. Other explorers from a land called France had already built a small fort nearby. Estacio knew that if he wanted to protect this beautiful River of January for his own people, he would have to be very brave. He and Afonso studied their maps, planning where to safely land their crew. On March 1st, 1565, the anchor splashed into the water. Afonso was the first to jump onto the warm sand, carrying a heavy wooden beam on his shoulder. It was time to stop sailing and start building. They were not just explorers anymore. They were going to be the founders of a brand new city. Estacio stood on the highest point of the beach and planted a tall flagpole deep into the ground. As the flag caught the tropical breeze, he declared the city officially founded. He named it São Sebastião do Rio de Janeiro, honoring both a saint and the river that had brought them there. The work was hard under the hot sun. Estacio and Afonso worked together to stack heavy gray stones, building the very first walls of the city. They weren't just building a fort, they were laying the foundation for a place where millions of people would one day live, dance, and sing. As the sun began to set, turning the sky into a palette of orange and purple, Afonso sat on the newly built wall. He looked out at the bay and realized that even though it wasn't actually a river, Rio de Janeiro was the most beautiful name for the most beautiful place he had ever seen. Many years have passed since 1565, and the city has grown far beyond what Estacio and Afonso could have ever imagined. The River of January remains a place of wonders, where the mountains touch the sea, and the story of its name reminds everyone of the day the explorers arrived in the heart of summer.